Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, a weekly show for visionary founders and team members alike to come together and share the heartfelt, the cringe, and the radically honest truths about what it's really like to build and work for brands with the highest levels of visibility. I'm your host, Veronica Romney, and after working for some of the biggest names in the online space myself, I've learned that it takes both leadership and collaboration to truly scale a company to its greatest potential. And I'm here to do one thing: empower leaders, teams, and dreams. So let's make it rain on today's episode. Donald Kelly, welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast.
Thank you for having me, V. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, can I tell you, this is absolutely surreal. Number one, we are personal friends. There's an immediate bias that we've known each other for years. Number two, it's weird for me to be the one podcasting you when I think about how to do a podcast and I think about the mentorship around podcasting, it's you who is the master of this craft, not me. So it's surreal to have the tables turn a little bit for us today.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it to see how the tables are shifting, and Veronica is now leading this process. Well, your show is very well needed, though, so excited for it.
Yeah, I'm drunk off the power. It's fine. Okay, so we'll dive right in because I have so much I want to talk to you about. But will you do me and the listeners a big favor and just introduce yourselves for everybody that has not heard about you yet?
Yeah, for sure. So I started a podcast back in 2013 as an opportunity just for me to be able to share insights on sales and what was working for me as a B2B sales rep, and to also kind of cheat a little bit because I was getting expert advice without paying fortune for it with interviewing some of these folks. And we got traction. I started coaching individuals who would reach out to me, and then speaking and training opportunities. And 2015, I left my full-time software day job and started doing this. We're working with individuals and teams. And now we service clients across the globe. We can say that literally, where we help them develop their sales skills. Most of them are individuals that want to improve, or teams that will come to us for programs. We have several different training programs that we offer. And the goal here, again, sales is becoming more and more complex, but it doesn't need to be confusing. And our job is to eliminate that confusion so that sales reps and sales leaders and founders who are selling can be able to do so effectively. And it's freaking fun. So
It is fun. And so what is the name of your very famous podcast, PS?
The podcast is the Sales Evangelist Podcast. So right now, everyone, as you're listening to the show, you need to go and subscribe to it and do two things. At the end, leave Veronica an amazing review, and then also leave us a review as well.
See, this is why you're the pro. Okay, so we have this very famous podcast that you used as a vehicle to basically go to a university of sales education by speaking directly with the people who were doing the art form that you aspired to be an expert in. I also need to put out there, because I have to reveal the immediate bias. So you have helped me when I had a marketing agency, and I at the time was telling myself that I loathed sales. I'm not good at sales. That's actually very much not true. I actually love it. But you helped me then. And today you are the sales coach for my husband, Scott, who does software sales, who just finished having the biggest deal of his life and is in the top 1, 2, 3. I don't even remember his business, but he's one of the top sales guy of this very, very successful software company because of Donald Kelly.
Well, Scott he's a beast at it, and it's fun to be able to work with him and see that. And yeah, so just put this in context, folks. There's President's Club. If you hit your numbers, you get a chance to get the President's Club, and that is really neat. There's something called Owner's Club, where you get above your numbers, and that's what Scott did, man. And he's just killing it. So congratulations to you both.
Well, he's killing it, but he has a great coach in you. And we are, the beneficiary of having you one-to-one. But I also know that you have a team and that you have grown your company in a way that it is not just you, even though your brand, your podcast name is singular. It's a singular person, a singular identity, a singular brand. So I really want to have this dialogue, because part of the reason I wanted to start this Rainmaker podcast was to talk about, what you do and who you serve. But more importantly, I want to know how you've grown the business to go beyond just yourself, because it's unsustainable if you're the only one that's making money for the company, or, at some point not only are you the only one making money for the company, but what happens if you want to take a break or if you want to go on vacation, like that tension with your own life. And I know you have a beautiful wife and a beautiful little boy. So like, I want to talk about how we went from Donald Kelly selling a mango on the streets of Jamaica
Yeah, man.
to now, and if you want, as much as you want to reveal the size of organization that you have as far as team member size and like where it's going and why you're building out a team beyond yourself. Let's just start from the beginning, right? Like
Sure.
we're it's just you, yourself, and I selling mangoes. Like, how do we go from there?
Yeah, so fast forward, and the mango idea here is, as a kid in Jamaica, I literally tried to sell
Mm-hmm.
mango because I wanted to make some money on the side. We moved to the States when I was 9, so the sales mentality was a part of me. It's just what I grew up with. And when I started the podcast, literally, like you said, it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
I did everything. I cut the episodes and all that fun stuff, and I was also trying to sell the services for the podcast and fulfill those services. Quickly, that started to realize it wasn't working. So the first piece that I got was people to take care of the podcast side. So I knew that was a great avenue. I can't get rid of it. It was my source of generating leads. Then the next thing that happened, and that was probably like, probably around 2014 where that started to happen. Then the next piece that came in wasn't until years later, because I did the solo shop for a while with the show, and I'm with the business. So as I started to get people, I would find them, I would coach them, fulfill them, do the
Mm-hmm.
processing in the background. And as you know, like any other business, it just become monotonous and you can't thrive. And I noticed what I was doing, Veronica, was exchanging time for dollars. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, coaching someone, and instead I had my freedom, maybe I have 4 or 5, 6 coaching clients you're working with, but then that's 4 or 5, 6 hours gone. And I can do it independently wherever I want to, but I just didn't have that growth mechanism to be able to see. So I said, what's the next step? And I'm fortunate I was a part of a couple masterminds, and one of them we saw what other small business were doing, where they started to hire salespeople. So
Mm-hmm.
the next person I helped out was someone in operations on the back end of the company. We brought them in to be able to help me in almost like an executive assistant role, and kind of help to take care of some of those other tasks. Then we got some interns that did some stuff, and they figured out with us that the roles that we were trying to do were more enough. It can't be done by one person. But that admin person helped me to be able to help separate, connect, do some of the back end office things, like, the numbers, connecting with people, connecting, executive assistant work and so forth. So then after that, I got salespeople, and one salesperson who was also just doing some outreach and trying to schedule appointments, that front end part, so that I didn't have to do all of that. And then we got another, and so we got a third one, and we had, so 3 BDRs is where we went to, and those business development reps, their job was engage with people online, do the cold outreach, follow up with leads, and schedule appointments, and then have me close them. And then we graduated a couple of them, so they started to work and do their own things. Now we're down to 2. One of them transitioned to a different role in the organization, and it was awesome. But 2 of them that do the business development side right now, and also work with closing some of those deals and working with current clients. And it is great because it freed me up instantly, so I can do what I love to do, which is to be the cheerleader for the organization and to be the visionary and shape
Mm-hmm.
some of those ideas. And then the back office started to become even more effective, where we needed somebody to work with AP, like accounts payable and accounts receivable. So we had that in place. And then a strictly focused executive assistant that just focused on doing the executive assistant work. And then the next piece was, now how do we scale Donald? So we created these training programs that allowed us for their video trainings, but then it also allowed for a live training, because I really just looked at Tony and some of these other folks, and I was like, how do you mimic what they've done? Tony Robbins built like this, whatever, millions of dollars organization. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have a facilitator, and we have 2 facilitators. Essentially, they don't necessarily need to do the training. I do the training in our training videos that the students watch, but then they lead the live training sessions once a week. and they're able to facilitate the discussions and lead the role plays and practice. And they know their stuff because they've been certified through us or gone through our content. So then they can do additional training on top of that. So then now I don't need to be the only one doing the fulfillment of those training classes. I have others, and then also they can fulfill the coaching side as well. So as a facilitator and a coach. So that's how we started to evolve. So on the sales side, I mean, as an organization, now you're going to make me count everyone. And then marketing came after that, because I was a sales guy. So I went sales first before marketing, but we have someone that oversees marketing. They, work with like PR and work with the emails that we do, our email outreach and all that fun stuff. And then a social media manager that takes care of the content for social media and engagement on a platform. So two in marketing, operations, executive assistant, 2 BDRs, finance, and myself. So there's 8 of us.
Yeah, it's a crew.
And then the facilitators they're contractors, and we have 2 of them. So that brings it up to 10. And then the podcast side of the house, they're mostly contractors, but they work primarily full-time with us. And that's about 5 other people there.
Okay, so I have so many questions. Number one, I would even say that your marketing started before your sales, because I find podcast, that's a marketing vehicle, right? It's a source of traffic, or at least a means in which you can leverage relationship marketing, right?
100%.
So there's that to give marketing, because this is always the tension between marketing and sales. Literally, my entire career is in marketing, and then I married a sales guy.
And the interesting thing with that too, Veronica, is you're right. It was because in school I studied marketing. They didn't have a sales program. I studied marketing, and I think naturally it led to it. But I think what happened was I felt like I could do some of that stuff, so I didn't want to necessarily let go of it. And then the sales side, even though I love sales, I just knew that I couldn't do all the sales things that we were getting. So it was like, it made sense financially to invest in that person. But you're right, marketing was for sure first. The first person that came to our business is a guy named Jose Diaz. He just came by our office the other day. And I told him, I'm like, you were client number 1, right? And he was like, I didn't know. But I put out the first podcast. He saw it on Facebook and was like, hey, can you help me with some coaching and some sales stuff and marketing ideas? And I was like, sure. And that's who was client number 1. So
you never forget the people that believed in you first, ever. Literally ever. I mean, certainly it's friends and family, people that you associate with in your personal corners of the world. But then when somebody who's not related to you, has no obligation to work with you, is not doing you a favor, just legitimately was like, yeah, I respect what you have to do, or what you're doing, what you have to say, and can you teach me what you know? It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Okay, so I have lots of questions, because
let's do it.
I'm literally just having a dialogue this week inside of a Genie session. So a Genie session is an hour block that I do inside of my Rainmaker residency program with my members, where we talk about anything and everything in a very private setting. And we were talking about a launch coming up, and we were talking about the offer, and we were talking about a bunch of stuff. But the thing that came up, the roadblock that came up, that I want to hear your perspective on this, was this narrative, this story that this beautiful member was telling herself, that the people just want me. Like, it's me. I'm not only am I the face of the brand. So when you go on social media and you type in the company name, it's her. She's the gecko. She's the spokesperson. She's the main, entity of the company, just as you are, right?
Yeah.
So then the curriculum, or the online education that she's selling in a course container. Okay, again, guess who's teaching the course? That's her, right? Even though it's recorded. So then they get into a Facebook group as part of that support side of the course, or anything like that, any kind of container, whether it be a Facebook group, a Slack workspace, or whatever. But the point is, then they want more of her, right? So she's telling herself this story that if she were to remove herself from the fulfillment, that it would lead to unhappiness in her customers and her students. And she has a real roadblock, but she's literally being torn between 2 masters, because she is a true visionary. She needs to be inside of that kind of sales and marketing and visionary messaging moments type of activity. But now she's telling herself that she can't pull herself out of fulfillment activity, because it would make people unhappy, because they're really just buying her. You talked about this, how you expanded your team, and you were very strategic to not only diversify your offer so that it was more scalable, Donald, but then you also had people on your team to then work with your students, work with your members, customers, and clients. That wasn't just you. So how did you strategically build up almost like their mini brands or their authority to represent you in the place of you, because you didn't want to be the fulfillment, the single source of fulfillment for your company?
So two parts to it. One, exhaustion. Like I was literally
Fair.
exhausted, and it was we had I held on to it a little bit like this person did as well for a
Sure.
while, and it was I went with that notion, but I really couldn't, Veronica. I was partnered with this
Mm-hmm.
company, and they had it was a program that they gave to, they did with us, and we were contracted, and they were giving us these coaching clients, and I was like, there's not enough time in the day. There's no
Mm-hmm.
way that I could do this. So I had a couple of my students, and one of them that was just like really, he's participated in our group training programs and comes to our program. And I had a private conversation with him, and I was like, "Bro, do you want to do this?" And he said yes. I put him in, and I did have that hesitation, but we, went through stuff with him. I met with him, did kind of like a little onboarding, kind of like training, even though I know he knew my philosophy and methodology. And then what happened was I helped to do that intro to facilitate it. Now, the crazy part was I thought they were going to have that same hesitation because I did have an
Mm-hmm.
initial call with one of them. And the people that he worked with absolutely loved him.
Mm.
And they even wanted to re up and go later on. And I was like, holy moly. I started off small. I did one or two, and then I saw that he could do it. So then I offloaded more onto him. And then the cool part to this too, when I do have people come in through the website, and this is where I think people they don't expect it all the time, because you're the celebrity. Like I don't, if I go sign up for Tony or one of these courses, I'm not
Sure.
expecting I'm going to see Tony on the call. So my company is not that grandiose yet, but I still take some of those calls, and I will call people back, and they're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting to speak with you. I think the last person said I was expecting to speak with one of your minions or something like that. And I think that the clients are they know that it's a pleasant surprise if they do. So I would just challenge this person to say, one, you can't scale, and two, you're going to get
Mm-hmm.
exhausted, and three, the prospects and clients are open to this idea. They're not expecting you to be on those calls right away, I would feel. And that's what we saw. So go back to the answer to the question. I tailored it. I made sure, one, this person was capable, that they can fulfill to the capacity and capability that I would deem as approved.
Sure.
Two, I started off small to a test batch, and the
Mm-hmm.
test was great. And then three, I just offloaded. And I just had a call with them yesterday telling them ramping up for the fall, like some of the things that we have coming in. And another one, same idea. Similar thing, went through. I understood what she was capable of doing, and she facilitated and led and guided, and in the same way that I did that. And we offload to her as well. So then now it balances. So I don't know if that answers it.
No, it does answer my question. In fact, I think what it illustrates is a level of discipline on your part. And the reason that I say that is because you are already operating in a place of burnout, or at least being like too much, right?
Yeah.
Label it how you want to, give it whatever language you would like to give it to. The most common one is like, I was burned out, I was too much, burning the candle on both sides, however you want, right? So
Yeah.
you were already in a place of self-identification of like, crap, I physically cannot, mentally, physically, I can't bend the laws of physics of time and space, right?
Yeah.
So you're operating in a place of burnout. But what I'm going to applaud you for, that I don't often see, is when we're operating in a place of burnout, sometimes we just throw people at problems without proper training, and without also slowing down to define what the success criteria is. What is the measurement of quality in your perspective? If somebody's going to represent you or represent the brand that you care about, like, what are they supposed to be doing, and why is that the fulfillment of the level of success or the criteria of quality success, right? That's something that you did. I often see in working with my beautiful visionary clients is that because they've been operating in a place of burnout for so long, they hire people or they invite people to the party, and then they don't do that part. They don't either ease them into the role and the capacity that is required, or they just throw the situation at them without defining the success criteria, and then they get really frustrated when that person doesn't fulfill as if they would.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't work out. There's turnover. Somebody fires or somebody quits, whichever comes first. And then the visionary starts believing this belief that no one can do it the way they can do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Do you see the same thing sometimes?
Yes, 100%.
Right.
And I feel like it was, I would say like I wasn't fully satisfied with the transition because I can get very detail oriented and want to go
Sure.
into it. But and what I did realize though was we did give them, they did have what they needed to
Mhm.
do the transition. And I was fortunate again, and I'll give him a shout out, Mike. Mike, again, he's been through our program and he came as an individual like 3 years ago. So I knew from his capabilities and see his performance that he was awesome and that he could do it. So that it did give a little bit of help in addition to that, but he didn't understand the back end of our organization.
Right.
And that's where I had to do some guidance. And I'm fortunate for my ops team, they were able to help to take care of some of that as well. And it also helped us to realize, okay, for our facilitator training program, what do we need for that? And he was like the guinea pig. So then now we continue to build it out and to fix up what a facilitator training program would look like as we bring on more people. But you have to start somewhere. If I didn't, I would be in an insane asylum.
Well, let's also, I wrote that on, like when you said it, I wrote it on my piece of paper. I'm like, I have to circle back to this because, so when you bring on a new team member, there's a lot of things there's a lot of new, you're drinking literally from the fire hydrant of all the
Yeah.
things. So you're learning a new language, you're learning a new family, you're learning a new like dynamic where your room is in the house, the hypothetical business house. Like, so you have to learn or get subject matter expertise to some degree about what you're talking about, but then you also have to learn the dynamic of the home in which, because everybody does sales differently. Your perspective, it might be different than another sales organization that they might have come from. So even when they come from the same industry, it doesn't mean it always transfers over sometimes, right? Most times.
Yeah.
But let's go back to what you said, because I 100% agree with this. I believe one of the greatest places to source team members comes from your own community and or people who have consumed your content or products. And I say that because that has been my experience working, like literally building up from within. I also, when I did work for Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and I was behind their curtain, they found me because they solicited within the community. It was KBB at the time, Knowledge Business Blueprint Community. And they said, hey, there's so many speaking opportunities for us around the world. There's only me and Tony, right? So this is Dean and Tony. There's not enough of us for all the opportunity. We're going to build an elite speaking team. So they went to the Facebook group of 20,000, 30,000. I can't remember this. It was nuts because it was the biggest launch ever. And I think it was like 500 or 600 of us had applied to be a part of their new speaking team that they were developing within the people who had consumed the course and purchased the course. And then I made it to the top 5, and then we got trained in Milwaukee by Pat Quinn. But like, I watched them do that. And then I also watched them build their coaching arm from, yet again, from members of their community. I see this time and time again. Because what you're doing is you're shortcutting the HR onboarding process because they've already consumed your content. It's like such a nice shortcut.
Yes.
But they also believe in what you believe. If not, they wouldn't have bought your stuff, right?
Yes.
So I sing it out loud, like sourcing people from your own home, your own community, your own following is like one of the greatest places to find somebody, don't you think?
Oh, it is. And I think the key when you brought that question back up, because I didn't know, Veronica, I just did it because it was just on a training call, a group call, and I was like, bro, it was like a eureka moment. Why don't we have Mike? So with that though, like the beautiful part was the vision. I needed to like at least guide them on where we were going and how our vision is to be the #1 sales education organization in the world, and how we want to eliminate complexity
Woo-hoo-hoo! Say that
and
again.
the #1 sales education organization in the world. So whenever somebody think about sales, they're thinking the sales evangelist, and we know it's a long-term plan. So we are doing that. And I needed to share some of those things with him, but he understood that where I sell from a place of integrity. He understood that it wasn't like a fly-by-night type of approach. He understood that we're not doing like pressurized selling. He understood that we understand that we need to educate people and help them to buy. He understood my idea of asking effective questions and those strategies. And those things are sales methodology, and it really just made it super easy. He gave me, after a couple of his first sessions, we record the sessions, and he was like, how do you feel the recordings were? I'm like, Mike, I'm not worried about it. You're good. You're totally fine.
Mm.
Because I knew what he was doing was right in line. And that was only because he was use this term, indoctrinated through the years
Ooh,
based on
yeah.
our process. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I call it I think I have a free Rainmaker hiring kit, which is like how I basically turn a walking testimonial into a team member. That's how
Yeah.
I look at it, but it's true. They're already indoctrinated in your values and your beliefs in the purpose of your program, the purpose of your company and its existence in the world. At least you can make some of those fair assumptions, right?
100%.
Okay. So let's talk about this because I always, when I'm working with private clients or I'm their, I'm their fractional chief of staff or members of the Rainmaker program, right? Like I will say this, I'll give this counsel. This is my advice. This is my top tip. I see it all the time. It works really, really well. And then there tends to be, in 50% of the cases, a pushback. We're like, well, hold on a minute. Because there is a hero complex. And you've heard the thing where like never get to, what is it? Don't ever meet your heroes or don't, the celebrities, right? So you like the
Yeah.
Justin Bieber that you think of and then you meet him on the plane, he's a total whatever prick. So there is this hesitation that like, well, now listen, the persona that I put out to the world is intentional. It's the highlight reel. And so when people see the stressed out version of me or the working version of me and the person that has that, ambitious frustration at all times, it can disenfranchise somebody very quickly too. Now, I know you well enough that you are literally the same person on camera, off camera, on podcast, off. Like I know that about you. But has that ever happened to you that the version that somebody thought of you and then they got to work closer to you and it's like, why you're different than I thought you were? Has that ever happened to you?
I wouldn't say to the extreme.
Okay.
However, there's one time that, and I was very disappointed in myself, and this is the first time I'm admitting this to the world, so to speak. So one of my team members that work with me is my brother, and that dynamics of a younger brother and I came out in a meeting where I was running on low sleep and I had frustration with something that happened with a client, and it really came back to my fault because it was a miscommunication that he didn't understand, but I was hoping that he could read my mind. So that happened, but then two other team members who again drank the Kool-Aid before saw that, and they had never ever seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back home and you go through the whole process and you apologize. And I told my wife about it, and she was disappointed because she was like, "You know the better than that." And that is those team members. They need to they need to get a one-on-one talk to and apologize. And you need to apologize to your brother. And I did, and it made me realize. And it was once that ever happened. It had to happen again, but it made me realize that you can't do that. You need to be that same person, and you need to you keep that not so much as an image, but this is who I am all the way
Mm-hmm.
around. And but I could tell it impacted them, and fortunately they were able to forgive me and we were able to move on. But the point was those two team members saw that, and it was disappointing.
Yeah. And I think that's why you hear those quotes where it's like, it's lonely at the top or nobody understands. And I listen, I have certainly felt that way many times. Like the mantle of the weight of the mantle that you carry as a CEO. Cause like ultimately, even when you even when you expand your team, you understand that like the buck stops with me and like
100%.
ultimately it always comes back to me because I gave birth to this baby. No one's going to care about this baby the way that I care about this baby to some degree. So then you really beat yourself up when you're just having a human moment.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's a human moment. None of us are perfect. All of us are going through moments of refinement at all times. But have you ever felt that way in your own business? I know, and you are expanding your team. You're inviting people to the party, and I'm really proud of you. And I'm behind your vision of where you're going 100%. Couldn't endorse it more. But like, do you struggle with that at all? Sometimes maybe you're no longer in a place of the burnout that you used to be because you have more help. But what about isolation or feelings of loneliness sometimes being the CEO of this company?
100%. I mean, I think it is, you still, that is going to come with therapy. The resolution of that, I guess, will come with therapy.
Sure.
I do get that because there's
Mm-hmm.
certain things that I want to get accomplished. I mean, you go back and look at it, like we're not publicly traded or anything like that, so the financial
Mm-hmm.
burden rests back on me and on the organization. It's like all of that type of investment is what I'm putting in. So that thought and those frustrations are there. And then go back to what you're saying, like there's certain things that even though the team members are fulfilling stuff, it's still the pressure of this is me, this is my brand, I need to be the person,
Yep.
I need to make sure this, and you still need to make sure the image that it's depicting is proper, that the way that their marketing folks are doing things, or whether it's the agency that we work with that doing some of our ads, that they're doing things appropriately and proper, like
Mm-hmm.
those things are still there. I mean, I'm an early morning person anyways. I'm not staying up all night with frustrations, but I get up early and I do my routine and do my thing. But you think about it. And one of the things that I had to talk, I think your husband and I, we spoke about this, Scott, and I don't know if I'm revealing his secrets, but one of the things he said that he used to do when he was working, going to the office back in the days, was he would come home and he would do the driveway for like 5 minutes to decompose
Mm-hmm.
or whatnot. And I was like, such a great idea. He said he does that now in the office. Before he leaves the office upstairs,
Mm-hmm.
he'll lay on the floor and decompose for 5 minutes to get in
Yep.
that zone. Because my wife has brought up, like, you're here, but you're not here. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the entrepreneurial dilemma, because you're always thinking like, what else could I add, or what else could I do, or this thing could
Yeah.
get done. And sometimes you just need to let it go, and it's hard. And that's still one of my things. So I've had to learn to do that for the sake of my marriage, is to try to
Mm-hmm.
be present as much as possible, even
Yeah.
though I am physically there. And I've seen
Mm-hmm.
myself that I look like a zombie. And if she's done like a video, and I'm like, what am I doing in the background there? Where, anyways, so.
I just love that she recorded you. She like recorded you. Here's proof of you zoning out,
And it wasn't like
right?
purposeful. We were doing something, but I was there
Yeah.
and I was like, I was
Yeah.
doing the motion. I was going through, but I was like, I was a zombie. And
Mm-hmm.
there was like a dagger when she said something to it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
ugh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways,
Yeah, we've had that conversation many times, many times. And I know where Scott got it from. He got it from Brendon Burchard's book, High Performance Habits.
gotcha. Yeah,
I
there
think
you go.
there's a part in the book where it talks about the person who can master transitions,
Yeah.
the high performer. So somebody who can make the conscious, again, disciplined effort to be like, I am now leaving the walls of this office, or before I enter my home, I'm going to sit in the parking. I do that multiple times. I
Yeah.
actually don't sit in if I open the garage, the kids know, like they all come running, and I'm like, oh, everybody's here. So I'll do it. Like I'll come into my neighborhood and just park on the side my neighbors probably think I'm nuts, but like I'll just park on the side when I'm not ready to like handle the man cubs and the big cub, Scott. But I also have notes on my door, on the glass door before I leave my office. And these are actually little notes that I can make the transition from working V to mom V.
Yeah.
It's getting harder because now your kids really, it's not just the spouse that notices that you're gone, that you're like physically there, but not mentally there. Now my children are 5 and 8. And so like my kids will call me out. Like
Yeah.
now it's like 3 forms of accountability, not just one. And so I have Post-its on my door. One says lead with compassionate curiosity, which I think is good advice for team management and for parenting. And the other one says focus on feelings and not behaviors. And I have to remind myself of those things as I transition from one form of who I am to the next form of service to my family.
Oh, I love those. I love that. That better be in a show notes so I can get access to those.
Oh, wow. And if you need a parenting coach, I got a recommendation too, because I've had to do that. Let's talk about your family. Can we hold
Yeah.
on? We like glazed over the fact that you work with your brother, but let's come back to this.
Yeah.
And I'm not the most expert person to even address this, because that's not my form. That's not my specialty. I haven't studied family systems and, all that kind of stuff. I'm not a psychotherapist. However, I have, as a part of my program, I have Dr. Sharon Spano, and she talks about this a lot, about family systems. And one of the things that has come up even inside of my Rainmaker residency program, which is a 2-person program, it's the visionary CEO and it's the marketing Rainmaker. If those 2 people are somewhat or in any form related, now we have another layer of let's say complexity, I want to say opportunity. But one of the really interesting things that we talk about is the disruption of a family system. So let's say, for example, that the CEO is the younger sibling, and then the marketing rainmaker or team member is the older sibling. Now you've disrupted a family system. Or if
Yeah.
your parents are team members and you're the CEO, you've disrupted the family system. Or the spouse, let's say the husband is the team member, but the wife is the CEO, you've disrupted the family system, which is really, really interesting. You said it was your younger brother, so maybe that's not happening as much because you're still the older in the family and now the older in the company. But can we talk about you working with your brother? Just whatever you want to share or comfortable sharing.
Yeah. So he and he'll hear the podcast, and he probably could hear me now, stone throw away. Uh, but no, it's cool. So here's a piece about that. So the first part, when I first started doing this, we were doing meetups, and I remember having these. So go back to Tony. Tony was having his event across the street. We were at a co-working spot, and my brother and one of my friends, I was like, man, I need some help with doing these local meetups. So they came and volunteered, and your family help you out. And then I was like, they did it a couple times, and they were having good convo. And I was like, hey, you guys do other stuff, but would you like to, just do some stuff on commission to start off? And they're like, sure, yeah, we can do that. And it started to work because my little brother, he saw what I would do. We would go around the neighborhood back in the days, and we try to build go-karts and find parts from other, people throwing stuff out and put them together and try to make our little go-kart or make like a
Yeah.
clubhouse.
Like the little
So
rascals.
yeah, because we were together, so it was like that. It was exciting in a sense because after high school, it's 5 years different. So you're not in high school at the same
Mhm.
time. So when I went into middle school, he
Mhm.
was like, eventually got to like fourth grade, and then I went to high school, so we weren't going to be
Mhm.
around each other again. So they kind of grew a little distance. So in some way, kind of helped us to get back together a little bit, and to kind of build that stuff up where we can try to build something together and to be a part
Sure.
of that. So that was cool. But you do have those dynamics, and here's another crazy
Mhm.
part too. My family, I don't know if you know this. I'm not sure if I told you and Scott this, but people in my family, I am the we have different dads. I'm a junior. So Donald C. Kelly Jr. And in my family, everyone calls me Junior, like knows me
Mm.
as Junior. So one of the first thing was when we started working with the team, they started to call me, they call me Donald. And I was like, this is going to be interesting. What is he going to call me? And he made the switch
Mm.
and saw that it was work brother and work person, and not necessarily see me as a brother, but just like and I think some people on our team didn't know we were brothers for a long
Oh,
time
fascinating.
because of the different last names. But it was like that idea though was it started to he called me Donald to do that.
Mhm.
It was weird for me because I was still
Mhm.
trying to
Mhm.
think of it in that way. But then also there wasn't any type of nepotism or any
Mm.
type of
Mhm.
worry in that vein. So I think that made it easier so I could see him as team member Jermaine rather than as team member brother Jermaine,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
Sure.
So some of
Yeah.
those things kind of helped with it. And that the only time we've had that tension was with that one time. And it was just like,
Mm.
again, me from exhaustion, because then I see him as the team member. And we focus on
Mhm.
the word team member, not the word family, because you can't fire a family member, but you can always let go a team member who's not performing at the team performance. And
Sure.
that's the way we look at it in that vein. So we rarely tell people like, and it's not purposeful that we're family. It's not that I'm ashamed of my brother, but it's just a simple fact of way we operate.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that gave some insights to it.
Well, yeah, it does because I think number one, most small business owners have some family component. If you think about anybody that you know right now, just do like a catalog in your head,
Yep.
whether they're like the wife or the husband is the bookkeeper that does the QuickBooks for somebody, or like there's usually somebody involved somewhere.
Yeah.
Some are more like literally day to day in the office together. But what I want to applaud you for is the awareness level, the intentionality, right? The intentionality by, please, I am Donald here and I am Junior on Sunday at the barbecue, right? Like there was that delineation between those two worlds, and that's helped the team understand that they are all equal, especially if you have team members that you got to promote somebody and then all that, right? Like you said, there can be
Yeah.
some complexity to it, but I think the intentionality is uber important. to not have it get harder.
I would, I wanted, I wish I could take credit for that, but it was just fascinating how he had the emotional intelligence to do that,
Yes.
to
Yep.
say like, okay, I see what everybody else calls them. I
Yeah.
should do that as well. In that same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good advice for anybody who's listening, who's in that dynamic, because a lot of
Yeah.
them are, and they'll still use pet names. And I was guilty of this. I worked with my husband, which is a whole other thing for a whole other time. But like it is like, hey, love, and that doesn't help, and that can put people off or make people feel uncomfortable when the loves don't get along or something like that. Because it's like, they're family, and you're right. There is a distinction between being family by blood versus being team members that their classification is in a work context above all else, right? Okay, Donald, I literally could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, and we normally do when we go out and hang out and stuff like that. But I think you're brilliant. I think the team that you are scaling and you're building, I think your level of maturity, and quite frankly, you've done it. You haven't done it rapid fire. I wouldn't accuse you of blitz scaling. Like, you've been very intentional. You've been just kind of slow and steady wins the race. You've been doing this for years, and the fruit has been really fascinating, and also really, I'm very happy for you as a friend to see that for you. Where can people, besides, they're going to definitely check out your podcast because you're brilliant, but also talk about your book and talk about where people can hang out with you after the show.
So yes, speaking about, as you said, the fruits. So my book, go back to that story you brought up with the mango. Growing up as a kid in Jamaica, we saw that people were selling the same exact products. It's not like the mangoes are coming from any other country. It's the same mango from all over the island. But people were being successful more than others. What made that happen? And it comes back down to the seller. So we see the same thing in B2B selling or in any type of sales. Like, you have people who have a similar service or product that you have, and sometimes the distinctions are not too great. What makes it stand out? And whatever it's the way you sell it and how you go about doing it. And that's what this book is all about. Sell it like a mango, a new seller's guide to closing more deals. So whether you're selling houses, software, coaching, whatever you do it, sell it just like you would sell a mango. And that's because you're going to be different. And if you want to get access to it, you can go to our website. We have a resource tab. You can start checking it out for free, thesalesevangelist.com/mango, to get a first chapter. And then also, if you'd like to check out our training programs, we have courses that you can take advantage of. There's a free one, thesalesevangelist.com/ I'm going to let's put Rainmaker, and you'll be able to get access to that free course, download it, and start checking it out. And if you want to find me on any platform, Donald C. Kelly, all the way across Twitter, Instagram, that tick to the talk, and of course, LinkedIn, Donald C. Kelly.
Oh my gosh, it just makes my marketing heart so happy that at some point somebody was like /mango. It's the best thing ever. Okay, Donald Kelly, you are a gem in all the ways. I love you. I love your wife. I love your little boy. I love your family. I love what you're doing. So thank you so much, my friend, for being on the Rainmaker podcast today.
I appreciate you having me, and we love you all too. Thanks, Veronica.
Thanks for listening to the Rainmaker podcast. We believe you can't get real results or have real relationships that last without being real first. If you resonated with today's episode, leave us a review so we can keep serving up the truth and tips that help you become the empowered leader that I know that you are. And always head over to veronicarami.com to check out all the free resources I have for you and the show notes from this episode. Until next time, my friends.